And a little bit about myself. I've been canning in excess of 45 years, preserving food in various ways, which we'll kind of go over tonight. And I have what you would call tacit, T-A-C-I-T, knowledge. And all of us have tacit knowledge and things that we do through the years, and we learn how to do it the best way possible for us. And sometimes it's hard to share that tacit knowledge with other people, but it's easy. You just take a couple more minutes and it's easy to share that. It's actually kind of exciting and rewarding. So I'm very thankful that I get to do this tonight. And with that, let's get on to the PowerPoint that I put together so we can start talking about preserving food. So if we could get the PowerPoint. Do you like the peppers? See how pretty they are? They're beautiful. Okay, so I named this The Joys of Gardening because the joy of gardening is already taken by someone else. And this is essentially how we start. We get everything planted and in its place so that we can work it through the summer and get those vegetables going. So this is kind of typical of what a garden would look like when you're working it. So if we go to the next slide. Okay, so now after working in the garden all that time, we end up with some beautiful veggies that look just like this. So what are we going to do with all of these? Sometimes it can be so abundant, we can become overwhelmed from it. But wait until you see what we have in store here tonight so that you can start processing them. So let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so as you can see, and I will say that the two photos on the right are actually from my garden. And I thought I'd just take a couple photos to show the progress as we're moving along. And yes, that pile of wood in the back, yeah, that's for heating the house in the winter. And then on the left one, of course, in the back is the house. So that's my homestead. Anyway, there are many ways that we can preserve all the veggies. As you can see, I have listed here almost all of them. The one I did not cover is flash freezing, because typically we wouldn't have that means to do at home. So we have freezing, and we have two types of canning: the dehydrating, pickling, fermenting, storing, and refrigerating. Tonight we're going to actually be doing a refrigerated pickled pepper that can either be water bath canned, or it can just be stored in the refrigerator, and it'll last 4 months in the refrigerator. So let's move on to the next slide, and we're going to kind of go over a little bit on the first one. So this is one of the simplest ways to preserve food right here. And what you end up doing, for those of you that haven't really frozen veggies that much before, it's pretty critical that you blanch, which means you bring a pot of water to a boil, and then you put your veggies in and let them soft boil for 2 minutes, take them out and plunge them in ice water to cool them down immediately. And then you can go ahead and freeze them. So that would be about the simplest way. And as you can see from the slide, they will last 2 to 3 months. And you can do all kinds of vegetables and herbs. Herbs, when you freeze herbs, there's multiple ways you can do that as well. You can put them in a ice cube tray and put some olive oil in the trays, and then add your herbs cut up in there. Or you can take your herbs and lay them flat on a flat container and stick them in the freezer so that they're frozen when they're the leaves, and then take them out once they're frozen, and then put them in a bag to store them that way. So herbs that's a really, really good way to keep them too, because they keep their flavor. So that would be an idea right there for veggies. If nothing else, if you've got an abundance, you could just go ahead and freeze them. So if we can have the next slide. Another photo of produce from the garden. It's always wonderful when you get all these veggies when they're nice and fresh and flavorful. So I just thought it would be nice to have a photo there. We'll go on to the next slide. Okay, so canning. When I put this PowerPoint together, my idea was to not only discuss the different ways that we can preserve our veggies, our food actually in general, but also to put a nice visual so that we can start thinking about if you've never canned before, maybe you're going to can something, something on this screen is going to grab your attention, like the bottom center is the salsa. That would be something that you'd be able to water bath can. If you look at the bottom left corner where the beans are, that would be a pressure canner. So it's important to understand which vegetables that you have to put in a pressure canner, and then which vegetables you can just go ahead and put in a water bath canner. And we'll get into that in just a minute. But this primarily, most of the things on this page would be pressure canned. So if we can have the next slide. Okay. The reason why I'm emphasizing the water bath canning is because if you're new to canning, this would be the easiest one to start with. High acid products are what you can put in a water bath canner. Pickles, fruits, and sweetened jellies and jams and things like that can go in there. Keep in mind that when you look at pickles, it's not necessarily just cucumbers. You can make dilled carrots, you can make dilled beans. That all those involve adding all that vinegar, which makes them high acid, which means that you'd be able to put them in a water bath canner. I have examples listed there. The tomatoes, the applesauce, those of us that have apple trees or plum trees, you can make plum jam, you can can your plums, you can go out and buy a lug of peaches or pears in the fall and can them up yourself for the winter. Last year I made rhubarb barbecue sauce. If you have rhubarb in your garden, you can, I mean, the sky's the limit. I also made ketchup last year. So there's many things that we could do in a water bath canner, which would fill our shelf. And as you can see with the photos on the bottom, what is the name of that pickled mix of vegetables? Gardalia. I can't remember the thing. Yeah, I can't remember how to pronounce it. Do you know how to pronounce it? No. Anyway, the bottom left second one in is mixed vegetables that you could do at home instead of buying that jar at the store. And you've already got everything from your garden, so why not do it yourself, which I have done.
Mary calls it chow chow.
Chow chow?
That's what Mary calls it.
Okay.
McConnell.
Oh, Mary McConnell. Okay. Is she on tonight? Is she? Oh, Mary, I always talk about the peppers like to party. I always talk about that. She mentioned that in one of the trainings that peppers like to party. Anyway, so water bath canning would be the easiest way to start if you're going to get into canning. If we can have the next slide. Okay, pressure canning. Has anybody thought about making their own soup, vegetable soup from the garden, and then canning it yourself for the winter? Instead of having to buy the store-bought, when you can things at home, you know exactly what's in them, and you don't have all that added, all those other added ingredients to them. So you can pressure can just about everything. I have pressure canned Swiss chard. I've pressure canned everything listed on the screen right now. And then I've also made my own vegetable juice and canned that. So, I mean, there's no limit to it, especially when you have your own garden. And it's so rewarding to just go to the shelf and pick something off the shelf that you had made, that you're going to be serving your family. It's just really, really rewarding. One thing I would say, this on the left, it shows a jar of corn. Canned corn is okay, but it's far better if you freeze it. I found that out. Many years I canned the corn, and then one year I decided maybe I'll try freezing it again. And that is, for us anyway, our preference to freeze the corn instead. And you'll decide as you start canning and freezing things which way you'd like to do it better. Another one is carrot. Canned carrots, my opinion, they're yucky. They're just not good. But you can take your carrots and you can size them up by their sizes, and you can have a certain size that you go ahead and freeze for if you're going to do a roast and you've got them all ready. Or you can have another package that you've decided to slice that you're going to maybe put into a soup, or use it if you're going to just heat up carrots for dinner or something. So as you get into canning, you're going to come up with your own knack on what you like to can and what you like to freeze, which one for which vegetable. And some of them you'll end up doing both with. I have canned pumpkin and squash, and I've also frozen both. And either way for me is fine. So everybody has their own taste on that. So if we can go to the next slide. Okay, this is one of my favorites, and that's why I have so many photos on here of this. This has got to be probably the most simplest way to preserve your foods. See the tomatoes on the top center up there? There was a recipe that I looked at that called for sun-dried tomatoes in olive oil, and the jar of that was extremely expensive. Well, you can do your own tomatoes. You can dehydrate them, and you can put them in your own olive oil, and you won't have to spend all that money. So, I mean, there's an advantage to taking time to dehydrate too. And when I dehydrate, I store mine just like the picture on the bottom left and the top right look. I take canning jars and I store them in that. To me, they seem it's better for storage instead of putting them in Ziploc bags. Recently, I have chickens at home, and I'm getting an abundance of eggs. So recently I found a recipe for dehydrating eggs, and then you can use them in the winter for scrambled or for baking. The only thing you can't use them for would be to crack an egg open and have it fried, but you can certainly use it in many, many other ways. And it's a good way to preserve them. Dehydrated eggs will last 3 to 5 years. If you had a dehydrator, you would be able to do that if you have chickens and you have all these extra eggs. So yeah, note on the bottom right that you can get creative when you are dehydrating too. You can add some herbs to your tomatoes like they did there, and dehydrate them together that way. This comes in handy, the apple slices. I do that all the time with apples, where you make your dehydrated apples, and it's a good munching snack. It's really, really good snack. I don't know how many hunters there are listening right now, but that's one of the things that's pretty handy to take out. If you're going hunting, you have your apple snack too. And the reason why is deers like apples, so that scent isn't going to bother anything. So just an FYI on that. Okay, next slide, please.
So I have a question. I think there's one of my questions is have you actually dehydrated the eggs yet, or is it something that you are going to try? Because I'm just curious, like, do you have to put like wax paper or parchment paper down on the tray, or how do you contain the eggs?
Okay, to dehydrate, I'll actually tell you the whole process, and I have done it, and I'll tell you what I did after I did the first batch. You take, every dehydrator comes with one tray that's designed for fruit roll-ups. It's like a little plastic tray type thing. So I have two, actually I have three dehydrators. I know I've got a big one like the one on the upper left, and then I have two like the usual harvest ones, the little circle ones. I have two of those because I might be dehydrating apples in one and onions in another, and I always separate for the scents and stuff. So that's why I have extra. I picked the second one up on the little ones when it was on sale. But anyway, with the eggs, you get one of them guys with it. And so I went on Amazon. You can buy extra trays like that. You can also use, I tried wax paper and forget it. It was just too flimsy. I didn't have the patience for it because you have to be very, very careful with it. So I went ahead and ordered extra trays off Amazon. And you take 4 eggs and you whip them up, scramble them, and then you put your eggs on the tray already on the dehydrator, so you're not carrying them around. Spread them around on the tray. You guys can see me doing this as I'm here. The people that are here see I talk with my hands, so I'm actually doing this as I'm telling you. Anyway, you spread it around on the tray, and then you dehydrate them at 135 for 8 hours. So the first batch that I did, the next morning, I took, for each egg that I wanted, I took 1 tablespoon of the dehydrated egg, which had already, you put it in the blender and make it real fine. One tablespoon of that to 1 tablespoon of water, and that equals 1 egg. And so I did that 4 times for 4 eggs and whipped them up, let them sit to rehydrate a little bit and whipped them up. And then I took a couple regular eggs and in a separate bowl, and I scrambled them up. And then I cooked them both separately to compare completely how they were. The color was the same. Texture was pretty much close to the same. The only difference, and the flavor was identical. The only difference was the fresh eggs were fluffier. But it definitely it works. It definitely works. And it's very easy. So yeah, it's a good thing. Any further questions on that?
Nope, thank you.
Okay, any jokes from anybody? No? All right, next slide, please. Okay, pickling, like I said a little bit earlier, all these things shown on the screen right now are pickled products. And a lot of people don't realize the variety that you can do. Look at that bottom right corner. That would be like the mixed vegetables. I hadn't seen one before that had corn in it like that, but certainly you can do that because there is pickled baby corns out there that you can purchase. So again, this would all be products that you can do from a water bath canner, which is very, very, very easy to work with. So next slide, please. Fermenting. I just mentioned 3 here, which would be the kimchi, the sauerkraut, and the kombucha. I have to say, and I'm not a bragging type person, but I have to say I make a kickin' batch of kraut every year. Every single year. I've never failed with the kraut. But then again, I've been doing it over 45 years too. So sauerkraut is a really good thing to have. We have it and go through quite a bit of it because it's a probiotic that we like to use. Kimchi is good for you. Kombucha is good for you. So fermenting is another way that you'd be able to preserve your garden veggies. And all of these are very, very, very simple to make. And then how about the next slide? Okay, another thing that we can do, and the reason why I have so many photos on here, is to show variety on ways that you can store your produce. Your root crops, potatoes, onions, those type of things store really well in a cooled area. Your garlics, your squash and pumpkins, all that, you can store that for several months if you have just an area set aside, corner in your basement that you'd be able to put shelves on, maybe section it off somewhere, a room in the house that you're not using that much, where you can turn the heat off in that room and put a couple shelves up and store yourself there, your garden produce there. And that's also where you would keep all your canned goods that you've done, that you've went ahead and canned up. One of the things that I did this year, I'm going to go back to the dehydrating, is with the abundance of peppers, you can take them all, put them in the dehydrator. When they're all dehydrated, then throw them in the blender and make your own pepper flakes, variety pepper flakes. And I'm telling you what, you can add them to anything. You can add them to your eggs, you can add them to your soup, to your homemade pizza, you can add them to your sandwich, you can snack on them. They are so versatile and so pretty too. You've got all the different colors of peppers on there. So I also made my own onion, and I didn't powder it. I wanted the flakes. So dehydrated a bunch of onions before they went, when they started, it looked like they're going to start going bad. So I threw them all in the dehydrator. And in the spring, you can do that with any garlic you have left too. You can dehydrate it to keep it longer. So yeah, preserving, there's all kinds of fun ways to preserve your food. So I believe the next slide is a recipe for what we're going to be doing tonight. Oh, no, we have to cover refrigerating first. So another way to preserve your food would be to look at recipes that you can do where you keep it in the refrigerator, typically for 2 to 3 months. It will last in there. You know, in the summer, a lot of times we'll make the cucumbers and onion and stick it in the fridge. That's a way of preserving your cucumbers when you get an abundance of them guys too. So refrigerating typically it's 2 to 3 months that you're going to be able to keep that in the fridge if you can, because you'll be munching on it quite a bit. So what we're going to be doing tonight, the peppers we're doing tonight are actually going to keep, the recipe says they'll keep for 4 months. So there are some that will last a little longer. Next slide, please. Okay, Jamie, could you do me a favor? We're going to come back to this slide in just a minute. Can you go to the next slide, please? I wanted to put my name and information there. If anybody ever wants to talk about food preservation, I'd be happy to talk with you about it. So I wanted that up there just for a second. About half full. That was perfect, wasn't it? If I would have talked any longer, you guys would have said, shut up. Right? Right? Okay. Oh, we're back on the recipe. Okay, so we are actually
All
going
right,
to
so
do this.
Did you have a slide? Did you have a slide after your contact information?
No, that was the end.
Oh, okay. All right. Just let me know
So-
if you want me to stop share and then people can see you larger as well. So,
Yeah, if, I don't know if they want to get this recipe, but they can get it later, can't they? So if you want to go ahead and share here now, that would be good. Thank you, Jamie. Okay, let's get back right there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to demonstrate how to do these peppers to pickle them tonight. So
Go with it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, so anyway, you saw the recipe and I'm gonna pull it up here because it's not on the screen anymore. And I'm gonna ask, we have some help here to get the brine going. The peppers have already been washed. So the next step is going to be to cut them. And I'm gonna tell everybody here, you can cut them either, you can slice them sideways or you can do them lengthwise, but you're gonna want them all to be about the same size in your jar. Okay, you don't wanna leave them whole, even though they're small. And we're gonna pack the jars very, very snugly. So if you guys wanna take a variety and then you're going to either slice them sideways or lengthwise, whatever you want to do. These peppers are gonna be good for, if you do them lengthwise, you can put them on sandwiches easy, if you're gonna add them to that. You can add them to salad, sandwiches, munch on them, whatever you wanna do, they're pickled, so.
What do you think it should take?
So you're gonna be filling the jar, so you're gonna want a good, these green ones here are the jalapeno, so you know if you wanna have a spicy one. So cutting, and then we'll get one cut here so that we can demonstrate what it looks like here on the front table here. Go ahead and just grab what you'd like to. You can come back for more, but take whatever variety that you want.
You said this is habanero?
Yeah,
No, not spicy.
no jalapeno.
Jalapeno?
Yeah,
How many do you take?
you can take, to fill your jar, so you're gonna wanna take a number of them. At least 2, 3 of each.
Either way,
color,
right,
I'd say, on the little ones,
You're gonna pack them very
maybe even more. That's the thing with this recipe. It's designed for when you have a lot of peppers from your garden. So it didn't actually say take 3 peppers. It said take a variety of peppers. And of course, the more color, the prettier it is in the jar too. So you just, whatever peppers you have, and you make the brine, and the brine is very, very easy to make. It's just a couple ingredients. It's sugar and salt and vinegar, and that is it for the brine. It's very, very easy. Oh, and water in it too. So
Is that a jalapeno?
that is a jalapeno. Yeah. The jalapeno, unless you'd like the whole jar to be really hot, what I would recommend is just leave that, take like a portion of it and just let it float in the brine. So it'll spice up the brine, unless you want the jar to be hot. Because once you cut into the jalapeno, we all know what happens there. It gets good. It's good stuff, right?
So Sue, if someone was going to make a larger batch, what you have here is kind of, what you would put for one jar, right? Like they would want to multiply this by the number of jars, maybe?
Yeah, yes, they would. So it would take, as a guesstimate for a pint jar, you would want 3 medium-sized peppers. And so like if you want, you could go all with the same color. But 3 medium-sized peppers would be for a pint. We're working with small peppers tonight, which means, you know, I said it's probably going to take 3 probably of each color. And we've got the orange, yellow, red, and then the green pepper too, that they can put slices in. So on the little ones, I'd say probably at least a couple each. We'll see how each person cuts them. We'll show the jars when they're done, so everybody can see what they look like. And if somebody's doing the cutting sideways like this, they're going to end up using a lot more pepper than if they're going lengthwise. Like if somebody decides to just take this pepper and cut it in half lengthwise and start filling the jar that way. So we'll see how it looks and how many peppers it took, because they're all smaller peppers.
So Sue, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you're canning, you're using a pressure canner and you have a glass stove top.
No, the best source for using a pressure canner is gas, because you can regulate quickly with gas, whereas electric and glass top, it takes a while to adjust that temperature.
So if you don't have a gas stove.
Then you sign up to use the cannery,
Oh, there you go.
right?
Yep, evidently.
Yeah. I'll come here and help you can if you sign up now.
You know, I've never used a pressure canner because I'm afraid of it.
Oh, goodness. Oh, they really are. You know what? I'm glad Mary Lou said that, because some people are intimidated by the pressure canner. You know, old school, I could see that happening, but through the years, there's been a lot of advances with them. And the whole key to a pressure canner is keep an eye on it. Don't leave it alone. So once you get your PSI up to 10 or 11 pounds typically, you just keep checking it to make sure that it doesn't go higher. It's very, very easy, but yeah. Does anybody else have any questions? I see Chuck L's on this call here. I wonder if he might have a question for me.
Hi, Chuck.
Oh.
So demonstrate.
Feel free to unmute if you have any questions, or you can put them in the chat as well.
Okay, well. Oh yes, you know what? I think I'll do a jar that is going to be cut lengthwise like this. And do you want to know why I want to do it this way? Because I might want to put this pepper on a sandwich, and it would be easy to be able to do that.
So Chuck said he's still in awe about the egg being dehydrated.
Oh, he couldn't say that. Everybody is waiting to hear his voice here. Chuck, unmute and say it. Do I sound like an older sister? Unmute and say it.
Growing up, my sister didn't let me talk much in the first place.
And then he went off. That's all he said, and then he went back off.
So are you taking the seeds out of yours?
Yeah, there's just a few seeds that I'm, you know, I mean, you can leave the seeds too, but The only ones that really make a difference would be the jalapeno ones on them.
What did you say to do with the
We
jalapeno?
start the brine.
That chopped up, you didn't have to list. So you put all your stuff on there first and then carry it over.
Because then I'm not lifting it right away. 3 cups of this. Jamie? Are you
Yep, I'm
there?
here.
Jamie, could you do me a favor and put a screen up with that recipe?
Sure, and I put it in the chat as well.
Okay,
So people have the recipe in the chat, but yeah, I can do the share screen and get the recipe up too.
the recipe. Okay, so that was 6 cups of vinegar for a dough, and I need water.
The other side. Oh. So you can just, it's a trap, that's just your. It's a trap, that's like Star Wars, you know. It's a trap.
All right. Yeah, pretty close to it. All right, so one more.
Missed that.
Oh, she's supposed to- that's sweet today. You want?
Yeah. How did you do that?
Water bathing yourself, I'm so sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
So Lynette, you asked about the egg, and I'm not sure if you were on yet or not, but Sue was talking about dehydrating foods and that she has actually dehydrated eggs, like scrambled eggs. And then once dehydrated, you can like blend that up into a powder. And she was saying 1 tablespoon of egg to 1 tablespoon of water equaled about one full egg, and you could use that to make scrambled eggs, or you could use it to add it to any baking recipe that you might be using or something like that.
So I was gonna say about those scrambled eggs too. Let's see. 4 dozen will fit in a quart jar when they're dehydrated. 4 dozen eggs will fit in a measly little quart jar. So it's pretty amazing. So this is the brine going on here.
You put the jalapenos into the brine, not chop it up in a jar.
You want to put the jalapeno in the jar at the, on top. So you got your brine and put it on top so it kind of floats on top instead of blended with the others.
Okay. In the jar.
In the jar, yeah. And how's everybody doing? Isn't this fun?
It is.
You're making it
We should
really
do
fun.
this, we should do this every week.
So I'm going to stop the share now so that we can see you a little bit bigger.
Okay, all right, thank you. We're having fun here. We decided we should do this once a week. Oh my goodness, look how beautiful. Look at this. Yeah. See how pretty with the colors?
You said do however thick or thin.
Yep, you can cut them whatever way you want. It's just a really neat recipe, very versatile. Okay, so, and when we put the brine on, we want to make sure that they are completely covered in brine. Another thing about this recipe is once they've been in the fridge for a while, you're going to want to check them because peppers have moisture in them. And they might add moisture to the brine, and then you want to drain a little bit out so it doesn't overflow. And once we get these in the refrigerator, you can start munching them 1 week later. They only have to sit for a week, and that's it.
So Chuck asked about the consistent cutting one way, and is that important? And I
No.
think that's personal preference.
It is personal preference. If you want to, let me see if I can grab a big one here. So like this one right here, if you want to slice them back and forth, you can. If you want to go long, if you want to make strips, if you want to take these colors and have red on the bottom and orange next and layer them by their colors, you can do that as well. It's very versatile. You know, let your imagination flow for what you want. And about the brine too, it doesn't really have to come to a boil. You just have to make sure that the salt and sugar is dissolved, and that's it. A lot of recipes call for it going to a boil for a couple minutes or something. Not this one. So it's actually quick and easy.
We're not blanching the jars.
What was that?
I thought you had to put the jars in boiling water.
They were sterilized before you guys came here today.
Okay, good point. Thank you.
Yeah. And the peppers were all washed before you got here too.
Okay. Can I get leftovers?
Okay.
One thing that Mary mentioned is that, you know, cutting pieces about the same size is good for like absorption of the brine. It stays consistent that way.
I'm sorry, Jamie, I didn't hear you. Somebody was saying something.
Nope. Mary was just commenting, you know, if you have your pieces about the same size, it's good for absorbing the brine evenly among the peppers when it's soaking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you decide to slice them, you're going to want them sliced about the same size, or, you know, if you have them, all that. Absolutely.
And this recipe, Sue, is just a refrigerator recipe. So you are not canning this to go on the shelf. This is going in the refrigerator, right?
Yes, but you can you can can these if you want. This is dual. Either you can leave them in the fridge, or if you want to take a step further, then you can water bath can them. They've got vinegar and salt in them, so they're either way. So when the jars are ready, and this jar looks a little too full.
This one?
Yeah, you got to make sure there's got to be room. We have to have them completely filled with brine. the brine's gonna come within the brine's gonna come within a half an inch of the top of the jar, and the peppers have to be completely immersed in the brine. There can't be any sticking above it.
So if you were going to water bath these, to seal them, how long would you do that for?
I don't have that handy, but typically something like this, you would bring it to a boil and you would water bath can it for like 15 minutes to make sure that they seal, typically. Okay, is anybody ready to get their brine? We need a bowl that oh no, we're not canning these. I was thinking we need to soak these in hot water, but we don't need to because we're not canning them. Okay, so take that one out and see some about the brine.
So we change that to.
Yes, you can do that. Okay, so this would be a finished product of what we're doing tonight, right here. So this, when it cools down a little bit, it's gonna go in the fridge, and then in 1 week, you're gonna be able to munch on these guys. Look at how nice that looks. And you saw how easy it was to do this. Look at that. So that is our demonstration tonight too. How are we doing on time? Oh, Jamie, we're pretty much done.
I'll do one without, and one without.
Unless people want to see the other jars as they come out, we can fill them in.
Slice, like barbs.
Sure, I'll stop the recording now.